Welcome back to SuperWest on Sundays, everybody. I'm joined by fellow senior writer Stephen Vilardo and fellow senior writer Dane Miller. And Dane is also an assistant editor here at SuperWest Sports. And my name is Nick Bartlett, and the three of us make up SuperWest on Sundays. And that is the best basic intro I can give you guys for a great week of college football. We had UW Oregon, we had UNLV playing Boise State, and obviously the breaking or semi-breaking news of the college football playoff. So with that, I'm gonna send it down to either Dane or Steve. Get your initial thoughts on the UW Oregon matchup, or Washington in the college football playoff, or just something along those lines.
Yeah, Oregon just can't win the big game. I feel like that's the knock on the program since the 2011 national championship against Auburn. I still remember that game, and they haven't been able to break out of that perceived inability to win the big matchup. I mean, we can point out stats or results in critical games, but I mean, just looking back over the Pac-12 era, what is the best win for Oregon in a big game? Was it the Rose Bowl against Florida State in 2014 to get to the national championship game? Maybe. But other than that, I feel like they've been falling short in key moments and pivotal games, and that perception has just been reinforced with steel, rebar, enforced concrete or whatever. They can't get out of this perception that they don't win the big game. They just don't. And so I'm sure, maybe Steve or you, Nick, have more insight into Bo Nix's, failures in big games too. But it's not just one player. It's not somebody making a mistake. It's like a team-wide thing. I don't know. I mean, you look at Oregon's records over the last 6 years, and they've been improving and improving and improving and improving since the program was pretty well in the dumps in 2016 or something. They had 4 wins. So from like a bigger picture perspective, they've been getting better, and certainly it's not where the program was at 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And so at a certain level, it's good where they're at, and they have a lot of momentum going into the Big Ten, and with the playoff expanding to what is it, 12 teams now, so it's going to be easier to make the playoff and have a chance to win a national championship and break out of the mold that you lose big games. But this season was, I don't know if you could describe it as a failure because I don't think it was, but I think it was a disappointment based on the opportunity that was in front of them and how they fell short. And so, really feel for the Oregon fan base and all their fans because it's a big deal when you lose to a rival no matter what. And now you've lost to Washington three games in a row, and this was to go to the college football playoff most likely, and you lose that one. So that's just tough to handle from a mental and emotional standpoint. So hopefully, Oregon can do well in what's going to be probably the Fiesta Bowl. Like it'll be announced here in like an hour or so. So see who they play, maybe Ohio State or somebody with a good matchup. So we'll see how they end the season. And I think Dan Lanning's a great coach. Seen maybe some talk on Twitter that some Oregon fans are upset with what he did this season or whatever. That makes zero sense. Dan Lanning's a great coach. They got a quarterback situation that they got to deal with over the offseason, so probably hit a good transfer. DJ Uigalele maybe, Cam Ward maybe. So it's from it sucks that you lost. It sucks that you lost. There's no way around it. But positive moving forward, you have to be positive and optimistic about the direction of the program. Just it sucks to lose a game like that.
Yeah, and against Washington, I mean, I think it's what now against Washington and Oregon State, they're what 1-3 in the last four against those guys. So with the losses to Oregon State and Washington both last year, and then the two losses to the Huskies this year. So whatever that would be, whatever that number comes out to be, and whatever it is, 1-5 or whatever the heck it is, 1-4. But I mean, yeah, I had two chances to beat Washington and punch a ticket to the playoffs. Could not do it. Friday night it came down. I mean, it was third downs. I think there were 3 of 10 for the game and 1 for 5 on third and shorts, which would be 4 yards or less. So I mean, you got it with Oregon and with the type of team that they have, and especially against what was perceived as a little bit softer Washington defense. you got to go do better than 1 for 4 on third and shorts. And I say perceived softer because the big thing with that game was, and I think we kind of talked about it the first time that they played too. Washington was the much more physical team, and I mean they kind of took it to Oregon on Friday night, and I mean kind of gave the Ducks a little dose of their own medicine in the Pac-12 championship game, and I mean kudos to Washington. I mean I think anybody who's read my rankings throughout the year or listened to this show kind of knows where the pecking order I thought those two teams were in, and I obviously was way wrong. I mean Washington is obviously battle tested and proven. I mean, I think, and they're going to be a dangerous out no matter in the college playoff. So it'll be fun to watch them moving forward over the next month. And I mean, Kalen DeBoer has done great, and Penix is obviously Penix might have sealed up the Heisman. I mean, he might have jumped from third to first on Friday night with that performance he had. I mean, Jaden Daniels was out, and head to head, Bo Nix didn't play bad. But Penix got the win, and he's 2-0 against him now. He keeps it. Nick, you said it last week. Washington wins these games. Michael Penix wins these games. Oregon and Bo Nix do not. So, just kind of how it goes. I mean, I don't think you can really call it a bad season like Dane said. You can't call it a bad season going 11-2 or whatever the heck they were. But the fact that both the losses are to Washington stings a lot, and the fact that you just had everything that they wanted to play for with the playoff berth and everything was right there. And even after the disappointment of the first loss, they still had a second chance to kind of rectify that, and the Ducks just couldn't grab it and couldn't take hold of it. But and that's Washington too. I mean, they're obviously a really good team, and they're running the ball more now as well too, and not relying on everything. They're playing physical football, and I think they're going to be a tough out for whoever they play. Well, we know who they're playing, but I mean, no matter which round they're in the playoffs, it'll be a tough out.
Yeah, and you guys gave the real good insight. I still don't know what to say about anything right now because keep in mind, guys. So for all the viewers, I grew up in Seattle, a Husky fan. I went to Washington State and hated the Huskies, and I still don't know how I feel. Like I just don't know how I feel. I'm glad for the city of Seattle because there's obviously a good energy going around here, and maybe some childhood stuff, but every part of the Cougar in me hates this. So I don't know what to make of this at all. But in regards to the game on Friday, yeah, like Steve said, I actually thought this time, I may have said it last week, but I really did think that Bo Nix would come to play this time. I'm not sure exactly what happened. They have enough weapons. I mean, you look at Jabbar Muhammad for UW, he's a hell of a secondary player. Dominique Hampton's pretty good, but you'd think that Holden, Tez Johnson, and Troy Franklin would be able to create more space, create some more big plays. I think we learned that Bucky Irving is phenomenal, but now we're going to look at him as the next level running back. He's more of a smaller guy who can't get it done in the trenches. I mean, the way Dylan Johnson did, there was a difference. What you want to say? Dylan Johnson looked like the NFL running back to me in that game. Obviously, with respect to Bucky, he's a hell of a player, and you're going to be able to utilize him in other sets, especially in a newer age football, just throwing little stuff to him out of the backfield. But that's a little too much insight on him for right now. But seriously, just wanted to see more out of the Oregon playmakers, particularly their defense. I'm still not. It's not that Jalen McMillan and Polk aren't really, really good and great. It's that I think Rome Dunze is the one guy, and Michael Penix still missed some throws. He's going to be the Heisman, but he still missed some throws he's been hitting, and I just don't necessarily understand why Oregon couldn't do more. But kind of this is too late. But like Dane said, Oregon just does not win the big game, and I might be from Seattle. I talk a little New York's, or not. I don't talk a little New York, but I like New York's mentality where it's like just say what's real. And Oregon's been freaking blowing it, man. There's no other way to say it. They did it again. They can't get it done. They probably are the better team, and I know it hurts. I know it hurts because I lost the Huskies. I got my Cougar keychain on, everyone. My purple sweatshirt. This is what I've been wearing all week in Seattle. It's confusing me. It's confusing everyone. But guys, I also during the game because my other job I have a green and gold keychain. I also threw that on because my relatives were cheering a little too hard for UW. They were cheering a little too hard for UW, so we just had to let them know for a second. I mean, come on now. But yeah, guys, it was in all seriousness. I'm just happy for I'm happy that it wasn't USC or UCLA. How about I put it that way? And I think that's probably the safest way I can phrase this. But bottom line, good year. And yeah, kudos to UW. They held it down. And whether it's Michael Penix Jr., Rome Dunze, Dylan Johnson, a good offensive line, they're really coming together as a team. And enough pieces on defense has been enough pieces on defense to get them out of the college football playoff in 13-0. So who am I to say? Who the hell am I to say otherwise at this point? Yeah. Good luck. I wanted to say go Dogs, but again, the Cougar in me stopped me. It's just that. And with that, I'm done, guys. All right, let's get back to some normalcy here. So the other big matchup, and I actually think it's a little bit maybe of an overlooked game this week because I'm a big fan of the story of these two teams, is UNLV and Boise State. I think Steve, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, like you said, I mean, I think you'll probably touch on it even more. But the story, I mean, Boise State was basically left for dead halfway through the year, and I mean, they were kind of questioning whether they were going to get bowl eligible, which I mean, I think they've been that way for 27 straight seasons now, which is like the second longest active streak. And that was in doubt for a while, and now they're Mountain West champions. And then you got UNLV, who was picked down at the bottom, maybe like seventh or eighth in the league. Somebody, I don't know who, and I think Dane and I actually made a little joke about it when the preseason polls came out in August or whenever, July, whenever it was. But somebody in the media picked UNLV first in that poll, and I think Dane and I both. Like Dane, you sent me a text at that point in time and said, "Who the heck's picking UNLV number one in this poll?" But they I guess they knew something we didn't, but but in this one, it was all Boise State. I mean, they just jumped on them early. The defense has been playing great and just continued to do so. In the ground game, 301 yards rushing against UNLV, and the Rebels have kind of had trouble stopping the run recently. But I mean, 5.9 yards per carry for the Broncos in that game. I mean, that was just all over it. And then you got Taylor Green, who played quarterback the whole time. Maddox Madsen's obviously out after his surgery. So back to the one quarterback system. And I mean, Green was 12 of 15 for 200 plus yards passing. Defensively, UNLV couldn't run the ball at all. And I think it was 2.9 yards for them on the ground per touch and 81 yards total. So I mean, UNLV's hot, or not UNLV. Boise State rather is hot right now. I mean, they're playing well. The job Spencer Danielson's done since he's taken over for Avalos in the middle of the season. It's obviously a tough situation, or would have been a tough situation going into it. I mean, and they've looked great the last 3 games they played under him. I don't know. I know they're doing a national search, and who knows where that'll end up. But I mean, if they stick with Danielson, I think that's probably not going to be a miss for them because the players are obviously are performing for him. I know they probably want to make a bigger splash, but I don't know necessarily how big a splash Boise State can make at this point either. And that's another thing you got to want to look at. And then because they've got some, I mean, they got an NIL issue that they got to fix, and I mean that a lot of that comes with new coaching changes too. I mean, I witnessed that with some Big Ten schools recently. I mean, you bring in a new coach, and obviously there's a lot more donors that step up and start putting in money to the program. Then, so that's evident. Helps NIL in that way. But Boise State, I mean, Ashton Genty's one of the best players in the country too. I mean, he's just a phenomenal running back. So that's a good place to start if he comes back. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of NIL money to keep a guy like that in Boise. But dual threat, can out of the backfield, can catch, can run. So, but kudos to Boise State and UNLV for a great season. But Boise State just turning things around, and I mean, it's first Mountain West championship game title for the Broncos since 2019, I think. So it kind of ended at their little drought there.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing I really thought of heading into this match was that winners know how to win. And this is, again, this is the corniest example. Again, just coaching, seriously, youth basketball. I've had some good teams, I've had some bad teams. And just when you look at this on a larger scale, Boise State, even though they haven't won since 2019, and I totally hear you on that, they just have a good program. It's is Taylor Green really a 12 for 15 quarterback? Probably not on a regular basis, but somehow it's like Utah. They have a good system, and you just play smart football. You make the right reads, and you understand that UNLV, even though they were hot, even though record-wise they were solid, even though they have a really good freshman quarterback, they probably never even imagined of being in a game of this caliber, to be quite frank. As the season started getting better and better, it's possible. But Boise, that's just the expectation. Even with all the losses and the mid-year firing of Andy Avalos, that is still the expectation in Boise. And one thing this thought just kind of formulated in my mind with WSU and Oregon State, obviously kind of unsure of their futures right now. Boise State kind of has or another Mountain West team, but I was thinking more in that West region because obviously, being a Cougar, Boise State really has an opportunity to grab that region and that fan base. They could take a lot of the Cougar fans. They could take a lot of Oregon State's a little bit of a push. It's a little bit further, obviously. But obviously, the University of Idaho is the league below or the division below. So Boise could really start winning conference titles again. They could build a rapid fan base. And just, so I think that'd be pretty cool. But bottom line, good job. They performed, and Taylor Green really stepped up when it needed to happen. And obviously, I think a lot of people would have thought that Jaden Maeva, am I saying that right? Jaden Maeva?
Yeah, I believe it's I think it's Maeva. Yeah, whatever it is, it's Maeva.
Yes, it's a little tricky, but yeah, I think a lot of people thought Jaden Maeva would have kind of been the better quarterback than Taylor Green heading in there. So Taylor Green stepped up, and again, kudos to a good system. Big win for Boise State. And the last thing, looking at the interim head coach, I never know which way to feel about these because, yes, you like riding the hot hand, especially with a big win in a conference championship. But where I always proceed as caution is now you look at a guy like Jake Dickert at WSU who started off really hot, got a nice Apple Cup win for WSU, and then kind of fell apart this year. So there are cases like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I usually prefer going with the hot hand and trusting the inside guy, but it's just something to consider.
And to follow that point, if unless there's some personality differences, why are you firing the first guy if you're going to keep the rest of the staff too? So that's kind of follow that.
No, exactly. So, and kind of Dane, I think we'll head it over to your direction. I've been talking a little bit too much here. We got the college football playoff. We got D'Anton Lynn jumping ship. Where do you want to go right now?
Playoff. So let's talk about the playoff and the selection committee's decision to put an SEC team in over an undefeated champion of the ACC. I mean, it is what it is, I guess. There's nothing anybody can do about it. I think the committee has shown an SEC bias from the beginning since 2014, since the very first go-round. And so I'm not surprised that it happened. I think when you break it all down, it might have been the right decision. And that's because of the quarterback issue at Florida State with the injury to their primary starting quarterback, and they're not really the same team. And so, like, if you were to just put Alabama against Florida State right now on a neutral field, everybody's going to pick Alabama to win that game, right? Nobody's going to pick Florida State with its, third string or second string quarterback. So from that perspective, I think they made the right decision. Does it feel right? Like, is it fair and equitable? Probably not, but, it seems arbitrary how they decide the teams, and it seems like they just kind of, I don't even know how they apply their criteria because there's so many, like I was watching the selection show, there's so many different criteria that they have, and it's unweighted. So you can basically just choose who you want in there. And you got a team like Georgia that was number 1 going into this weekend. They dropped to 6. Like, that's never happened before, right? A team goes from number 1 to out of the playoff because of one loss. But I mean, it is what it is. And I'm looking at this Washington versus Texas matchup. It's too bad they couldn't have done that at the Rose Bowl for the Rose Bowl game. But now Washington's got to go to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans against Texas. And so that's going to be a hostile environment. There's going to be way more Texas fans. Last season, I think, it had to be last season, Washington played in the Alamo Bowl against Texas, if I'm remembering that right, and beat them. So Washington's on this 21-game winning streak, and Texas is one of those teams that they beat. Probably Texas had a bunch of opt-outs, if I remember right, and so it's not really the same Texas team that they're going to be facing this season. But you have to feel a little bit confident if you're Washington about that game. I think by getting the 2nd seed as opposed to the 1 seed and missing Alabama is a big deal. Like, if we were to put Washington against Alabama, I think most people would probably pick Alabama. And so you get probably the better matchup by facing Texas. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that game. I think Washington has a great chance of advancing to the national championship game. I think their offensive system is probably going to be able to score points against Texas' defense, and it'll all come down to whether Washington can stop Texas's offense. I mean, they just dominated Oklahoma State in that Big 12 title game, just like embarrassed them. So Texas is a very good team. Texas beat Alabama at Alabama by I think double digits. So it's I have no problem with Texas getting in. Obviously, Michigan with the 1 seed. We were talking before the show started. Well, maybe Washington should probably have been the 1 seed based on resume, but then I said, well, yeah, but Michigan's probably a better team than Washington. So what the committee did, I think, was sort of kind of throw stuff out the window and did a lot of eye tests. Eye test is probably what got everything where we are today because based on a resume, you think undefeated Florida State should be in, but Alabama's a better team than Florida State. I think Alabama's a better team than Florida State, even if Florida State had its best quarterback. So they probably made the right decision, but it doesn't feel like it should. But that's what you get when you get 4 teams in, and it's the last year of it. So, we're looking forward to next year with 12 teams. I think it should be 16, but 12 teams next year. And hey, it's going to be great games, man. Michigan versus Alabama, that's a great matchup. Washington versus Texas is going to be a lot of fun too. So, Florida State's out, but that's what happens when you lose your quarterback.
Yeah, now I'm going to kind of go the other argument on that. Florida State also they went 2-0 against SEC schools this year. They absolutely boat raced LSU, was probably one of the better SEC schools. The SEC is always the premier conference. This year it was not. I mean, it was a down year for the SEC. It wasn't great. I think all year you saw Georgia. I mean, yes, they were number one, but they weren't dominant. Georgia was a flawed team from the start. Alabama's really good. And I mean, Alabama's a team that I wrote about as I was doing my rankings every week. And it was a team that at the start of the year, I said, they're going to struggle early. But by the end of the year, they're a young team with a young defense and they're going to be extremely good. And I mean, it's might be Saban's best coaching job. But I would argue beating Louisville, I mean, now granted it's Louisville, but beating Louisville in the ACC title game, they were a top 15 team, top 20 offense. Florida State's defense held them to 6 points, beat them with your third string quarterback. I think that actually should kind of speak volumes for something too. I mean, if you had told me to pick who was winning between Alabama and Florida State, I'd probably say Alabama, sure. But you're kind of penalizing Florida State for winning with defense now at this point in time because their defense is an elite defense that can shut down teams. Florida State was 13-0, and it kind of just makes you say, what's the point of the regular season then at that point if you're just going to say, I mean, obviously you're picking the best teams, but it's I'm not a fan of the way it played out. I think Florida State should have been in. I think the SEC is down this year. I think there was a lot of stuff. I think there was politicking from ESPN yesterday before even the games even started to get Alabama and Georgia in. And I mean, you can make other arguments too. I mean, Ohio State, obviously, they should not be in the playoff, but I mean, their only loss was a 3-point loss on the road to the number one team in the country right now too. So I mean, it's and the 12-team playoff will make it great next year, and I think 12 is fine. I mean, you could go 16 and it'd be great, but given the top 4 teams a bye is kind of nice too because they kind of separate themselves a little bit. And next year we can argue over who was number 13, but the big difference between that is like if you look at I think number 13 last week was LSU. So you can argue between that, but the difference is this year I think whoever's 5th, if you want to say Georgia, you want to say Ohio State, you want to throw Oregon in there, arguing about those kind of teams, they actually have a chance that they could possibly win the national title. I think if you went down to 13, you're arguing, you can argue who's in, but that 13th place team's probably not going to win the national title at that point. So, I mean, that's the difference with getting more in. But I think the committee missed it on this one. I think the top end's fine. I think Texas, obviously, and like you said, Dane, it's going to be great matchups. I'm looking forward to all the games. I mean, they're going to be fun games to watch. I think they're going to be really good games across the board. Obviously Washington, I kind of like the matchup with Texas. Like you said, I think it's a better matchup than Alabama, but also Texas is playing just about as good as anybody in the country right now too, with their explosive offense, and Quinn Ewers is back and healthy. And I mean, they've got a lot of weapons on offense, and then defense. I know they had a big injury yesterday, so we'll see how that kind of affects them at the wideout spot. But should be fun.
And I feel it's possible that you guys are both right. I think I lean a little bit more Steve on this one, but I think you're both right. Because, yeah, like Dane said, they did get it right. They got the best games and the best matchups in for sure, 100%. This is more exciting this way. But they're also doing it for money, and we'll just leave it at that. That's simple. And then, like Steve said, and this is where I lean with Steve. Like bro, you cannot just leave a team out that went undefeated. I don't care if your quarterback's hurt. I don't care if they're going to get blown up by 60. Bro, we live in America. We almost swore we out participation trophies now for losing. For losing, you're getting in the college for losing because Florida State won all their games, right? Because because if I'm understanding this right, they won all their games and they're in a major conference and they're not in the college football playoff. So what's the point of winning all your games then? Someone tell me that. Someone explain that to me. I'm sorry they got hurt. It's football. That's what happens in football. That's why I played basketball. But again, like with all like Dane said, it does make sense from a standpoint because Florida State probably would have gone out there and got slapped by 50 points. So they have to be in there, but the NCAA just showed exactly who they are and what they're about now. It's not even that was just too obvious. You had to put Florida State in. You just had to. But we just got differing opinions, and that's where it is. And the last thing, do we want to talk about it? Because that was a passionate subject for all of us. Do we want to talk about D'Anton Lynn, or should we just laugh at the two schools who defected from us?
I'll talk about it. So, yeah, USC was in its defensive coordinator search, and there was some rumors from defensive coordinator at Nebraska, another guy that I think from the Big Ten that I didn't recognize his name, and sort of wavering. And there were some Twitter rumors that maybe some disagreements about how the rest of the staff would be set up or something with one of those options. And so out of the blue, the news breaks during the Pac-12 championship game that USC has poached D'Anton Lynn from UCLA. So two primary takeaways from that. First, for UCLA, the program is just completely falling apart. You got Dante Moore transferring out. You lost your best defensive coordinator. The primary asset of your team at this point is now gone, with the defensive coordinator jumping to your rival. D'Anton Lynn just dramatically turned around UCLA's defense in a single season. Came straight from the NFL, from the Baltimore Ravens coaching tree. That good defense there. So it's a big blow for UCLA. It's can't understate the damage that is happening right now in Westwood, and the state of that program heading to the Big Ten, with Chip Kelly being retained and losing staff and quarterbacks. So for UCLA, it's basketball season, so I guess they're just focus on Mick Cronin and everything that's going on there, because you got a really good foundation and piece for basketball. But anyways, yeah, and then USC, big hire. I like it. I think it's a great hire. Obviously, what he did at UCLA speaks for itself. My real question is, UCLA had a really good front seven, an elite defensive line, and very strong linebackers. And so was D'Anton Lynn's success due to his personnel that he had? He used them very well, variable techniques and formations and play calling, which is probably a lot to do with the success. But when you have players that are that good, it really makes the coach look good. And so now you're going to USC, where you probably have similar level of players, at least on paper you should. But I would argue that the front seven at UCLA was better than the front seven at USC. So he's taken a step down when it comes to the talent that he has to deal with, to work with. And so is he going to be able to replicate that success? I think the transfer portal is going to be big for him this offseason, who they can bring in. They got a ton of NIL money. So his talent evaluation and ability to acquire players through the portal is going to be massive. And it's going to make a major impact on USC's the defense next season. If he hits the ground running and he does what he did at UCLA in his first year over there at the Trojans, They're going to be a transformative defense for USC, and it's going to address the primary flaw in the entire program. And who knows? I always think USC is going to be better than they are. It's my own personal problem. So I don't know. I feel good about it, but that probably means I'm wrong. So it's going to end in disaster. So we'll see.
You got any thoughts, Steve, or should we?
No, I think that pretty much covered it all. I mean, I guess the one thought I'll say is Chip Kelly might have retained his job because of the performance of that defense, and now he's who knows. I mean, it's one of the there might have been a lot of reasons, I guess, why he might have retained his job. I don't know. Somebody else is making that call, but I think D'Anton. My opinion is Lynn's kind of saved his job this year, gave him another year at UCLA, and now Lynn's gone, so we'll see how that goes for the Bruins.
Yep. Cool. All right. I have absolutely nothing on that topic because they left, honestly. So that's how I feel. But in all seriousness, he's a really good defensive coordinator. So I think we got our kind of players of the year and our teams of the year and not team of the year. So I will start because I'm probably the most conflicted person on this. Offensively, I think we had to choose Michael Penix Jr. Sorry, guys, kind of hopped halfway up the screen there. But yeah, we had to pick Michael Penix Jr. I mean, what can you say? He's 13-0, probable Heisman. And just every time he rises to the occasion, it's been consistent now. He gets it done. And I was just watching the game with my aunt and uncle. And again, living in Seattle, they're big Husky fans. And I was a hater when Huskies were 11-0. I was still hating. But once he won that game, that Pac-12 championship and the college football playoff and the Heisman, you got to respect greatness at some point. So that's a pretty easy offensive player of the year. Defensively, did you guys want to touch on Leatu Latu?
I think Dane said a lot of it in the last piece. I mean, he was the dominant piece for a dominant defense, and on that front seven, caused a lot of problems in the backfield, made a lot of plays in space. Just a dominant player, up for a lot of defensive awards nationally. So I mean, I think he's not only probably the best player in the region we cover, but also one of the top defenders nationally. I think it was, again, just a great player and the best player on perhaps the best defense around in this part.
Agreed. And I will add, I saw him single-handedly dominate these guys on the keychain, and also Colorado and Deion Sanders. Like, he won 2 games by himself. This is football. That's hard to do. So just a little add on there. And then Steve, you also want to touch on Jose Pisano?
Yeah, Jose Pisano should be winning the UNLV kicker. He's going to be our special teamer of the year. He's up for the Groza Award. I voted for him for the Groza Award. As the top kicker nationally. Should be special teamer in the Mountain West without question this year. Just a phenomenal kicker. Had some game winners. I think the Colorado State game, I think he had the game winner and kicked 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 7 on field goals in that game, and UNLV won. So instrumental part in the Rebels turnaround and getting to the Mountain West Championship game.
Definitely, and I know this last one, Dane, just get to it. Talk about Fafita, man. I know you'll probably enjoy this one a little bit. So,
yeah, no Fafita for our freshman of the year. Really just he took over the starting role and never looked back. Executes the offense pretty much to perfection, and just does what he needs to do. Makes some mistakes, but not really. I mean, doesn't really look like a redshirt freshman out there. And yeah, the results speak for themselves. What he's done with Arizona, probably going to the Alamo Bowl. So no Fafita for freshman of the year.
Awesome. All right, and then I know we got still my fearless predictions up for whatever reason, but we got our team of the year. I think we got 2 team of the year actually, teams of the year. So it's going to be a split between UNLV and Washington. I think Washington's pretty obvious. Steve, did you want to touch on UNLV, or is that obvious enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think Washington's obvious because they're in the playoff and obviously has a chance to play for a national title. But UNLV kind of turned things around from. I mean, at the start of the year, we knew Washington was going to be good. We knew they were going to be one of the top 3 teams in the Pac-12. UNLV, I don't think anybody would have thought they were going to be good. So I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming with them for the team of the year, just kind of out of the surprise of it. And then for coach of the year, I'll kind of piggyback on that, and my choice at least would be Barry Odom at UNLV for those reasons. First year in with the Rebels, kind of changed that culture immediately. Got one of the best seasons they've had since they were in the WAC, and I mean really probably since Randall Cunningham and Nicky Woods were playing back in the 80s. So a lot of excitement, a lot of bright future, and we'll see if they can sustain it, and if UNLV can keep him there for a while too, because I think he's obviously has done a fantastic job with the Rebels and turning things around in a hurry down there.
All right, I think so. That covers, we got our coach of the year, we got our team of the year, and then obviously usually the funnest part, or maybe not so fun for the fan bases, but we got San Diego State and USC as our not teams of the year. I think, Dane, I'll let you start. Or which one of you guys chose USC? I don't remember, actually.
That was me. I'll go for it.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously, USC fell far short of expectations. Fired their defensive coordinator in the middle of the season. That should have been done at the end of last season. You have a player like Caleb Williams coming off a Heisman. You should do better than 7-5 or whatever it was. I don't even know what bowl game they're going to. It looks like maybe the Holiday Bowl. So that's just you fell far short of expectations. But I think Lincoln Riley's probably making some of the right decisions on the defensive coordinator front. USC has a great NIL deal, situation in place, and they're on decent footing going into the Big Ten. They're probably going to lose Williams to the NFL, so got to get a quarterback. But I mean, it's not the worst situation to be in. But yeah, the results speak for themselves. You can't go 7-5 at USC.
And 1-5 down the stretch. So yeah, they lost 5 of the last 6. And
yeah, that's awful.
Probably should have lost to Cal too in that game. So really could have gone 0-6, but whatever.
Should have lost to Arizona too. Triple overtime.
That too. Yeah, definitely. I think USC is a great choice. I'm gonna go also with, I'll throw out there San Diego State, just because another team that was kind of picked to be among the top in the division in their conference, and turned out to be at the bottom of the conference. I mean, 4-8 I think is what the Aztecs ended up in Brady Hoke's last year. Shut out by Nevada 6-0. Got the win against Fresno State in the end, but Fresno State was struggling. But I mean, I think the 6-0 loss to Nevada kind of speaks volumes for everything they had going on. I mean, that's you can't do that. So anyways, so San Diego State, big disappointments, but they did get Sean Lewis, and I'll let you talk about that, Dane. Go for it.
Yeah, no, okay. I love Sean Lewis. I think his offensive system is excellent. It's really exciting, and it scores a lot of points. Deion Sanders made a terrible decision to remove the play calling duties from Lewis. I don't think it worked at all. And now Lewis is the head coach at San Diego State and is going to get players that is going to execute his system, and they're going to score a lot of points. And he's going to turn that program around. Maybe not quickly or fairly quickly, but who knows? We'll see what he gets at the quarterback position. He needs running backs. I think his system is more of a running type of offense, and he wasn't able to accomplish that as much at Colorado because of the line. So we'll see. I think he'll have a lot of success there at San Diego State.
All right, and you guys know a lot, man. You guys know a lot of things, don't you? All right. Is there anything else we want to add before we get out of here?
I think we're good.
Yeah, just the bowl games. Looking forward. I want to see who's in the LA Bowl against Boise State, and I want to see who's in the Arizona Bowl here in Tucson. New Mexico Bowl is always fun to watch for me because I got New Mexico plates here. So, I love bowl season. I think bowl season is better than March Madness. So
it's the best.
I'm ready for it. I don't see why people complain about watching more football. So, we'll see how it all goes.
And it's all during the holiday season, so everybody's work slows down a little bit in the holiday season. I mean, unless you're covering bowl games, but yeah. So it's great. I mean, yeah. So people can just sit back, enjoy. Get it's the best time of year.
All good.
Definitely agreed. All right, guys, I got to get out here. I got to go coach a youth basketball game, as I mentioned early. My other team may not be having quite as much success. This team is currently 1-0. So should I try and throw this game? Because if we lose this game, they'll let us in the college football playoff, right? In all seriousness, my other team may not be having as much success, but seriously, the game should be good. Unfortunate situation for Florida State. Oregon fans, keep your head up. Cougar Beaver fans, keep your head up. And yeah, Huskies a hell of a job representing the conference, and should be really fun watching the college football playoff going forward. For Dane, for Steve, I'm Nick. Deuces.